3:47 a.m., a Tupolev Tu-22 M3 backfire, NATO designation, sat fueled and loaded on the runway apron at Takeoff Air Base in Kaluga Oblast, 417 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The bomber had returned from maintenance rotation 90 minutes earlier. Engines were warming. Weapons pylons carried 3 Kh-22 cruise missiles, each costing $1.8 million. The mission brief called for a pre-dawn strike against electrical infrastructure targets in central Ukraine. If the bomber departed on schedule at 4:09 a.m., it would reach launch range before Ukrainian air defenses could reposition. If it delayed, daylight would expose the aircraft to satellite observation during its return. The crew of 4 was completing final pre-flight checks. Russia was racing against time. Ukrainian deep strike operations had intensified throughout March and April 2025. 16 long-range aviation assets had sustained damage from drone strikes in the previous 11 weeks. Shaykovka's security posture had been upgraded. Additional Pantsir S-1 systems deployed to create overlapping coverage across a 12-kilometer radius. Electronic warfare batteries positioned to detect drone swarms at 41 kilometers. Patrol schedules randomized. From Russian command perspective, the base had become one of the most defended forward bomber hubs in the Western military history. The calculation was clear: launch operations from Tchaikovka reduced flight time to Ukrainian targets by 37 minutes compared to staging for Indus 2 deep in Saratov Oblast. The bomber was already targeted. 193 kilometers to the south, a Ukrainian intelligence operator monitored thermal imaging data transmitted from a loitering reconnaissance drone flying at 8,000 meters altitude. The drone, a modified commercial platform costing $11,400, had entered Russian airspace at 2:14 a.m. following a flight profile designed to mimic civilian aviation patterns. It had been circling Tchaikovka's approach corridor for 42 minutes, cataloging heat signatures as aircraft moved between hangars and staging positions. When the Tu-22 M3 rolled onto the apron and began engine warm-up procedures, its thermal profile became unmistakable. 2 Kuznetsov Mk-25 turbofan engines, each generating 16,000 pounds of thrust, created distinct heat waves visible from 17 kilometers. The bomber's location, engine status, and mission timeline were transmitted to Ukrainian strike coordination at 3:51 a.m. Minutes earlier, a second element had moved into position. At 3:29 a.m., a repurposed kamikaze drone, designated UJ-22 Airborne, unit cost $65,000, had been launched from a concealed site 114 kilometers inside Ukrainian controlled territory. The drone climbed to cruising altitude of 4,000 meters and set course northeast. Its navigation system had been pre-programmed with precise coordinates for Tchaikovka's. The flight profile avoided known Russian radar installations by exploiting terrain masking through valleys in Bryansk Oblast. Electronic countermeasures were minimal. The drone's small radar cross-section and composite construction rendered it nearly invisible to ground-based search radars operating in the S-band frequency range. Russian air defense doctrine prioritized detection of fast-moving tactical aircraft and cruise missiles. A slow-flying drone traveling at 147 kilometers per hour fell below threat classification thresholds. If you want to understand how a $65,000 drone bypassed a $127 million air defense network, subscribe and stay with us. At 3:58 a.m., Tchaikovka's perimeter surveillance detected an anomaly. A Pantsir S-1 crew operating from the base's northeastern sector reported intermittent radar contact with a low-altitude object tracking southward at slow speed. The contact appeared, disappeared, then reappeared, behavior consistent with a small unmanned platform using terrain to mask its approach. Standard engagement protocol required positive identification before weapons release. The Pantsir's 1RS-2-1E phased array radar, with detection range of 36 kilometers against fighter-sized targets, struggled to maintain continuous lock on an object with minimal thermal Engine thrust increased to taxi power. The bomber, weighing 124,000 kilograms fully loaded, began rolling toward the active runway. Mission timelines were tight. The aircraft needed to reach launch coordinates over the Black Sea by 5:47 and to maintain coordination with a larger strike package involving additional bombers from Mozdok Air Base. Weapon systems were armed. Navigation computers held encrypted target data for 3 separate Ukrainian electrical substations. From the Russian operational perspective, this was a routine sortie. The bomber had flown identical missions 17 times since February. Crews had developed confidence in the predictability of Ukrainian air defense responses. At that moment, the UJ-22 drone crossed Shevkovka's outer security perimeter. It approached from the northwest at an altitude of 312 meters, descending toward the runway complex at 12 degrees 8. The flight path had been calculated to avoid direct overfly of known Panzer positions while maintaining terminal guidance on target coordinates. Onboard optics acquired the Tu-22M3 visually at 4 kilometers distance. The bomber's massive swept-in profile was clearly visible under perimeter lighting as it taxied toward runway threshold. The drone's guidance system locked onto the heat signature from the aircraft's engines. No evasive maneuvers were necessary. The bomber was moving in a straight line at 14 kilometers per hour. Russian electronic warfare systems detected the drone's guidance data link at 4:06 a.m. An RB-341V Lear-3 jamming platform positioned 7 kilometers from the runway began broadcasting interference across commercial GPS frequencies and standard telemetry bands. The countermeasures were effective against basic commercial drones relying on satellite navigation. They were not effective against a platform using inertial navigation with terminal visual guidance. The U-22 continued its approach without deviation. Its flight computer had been programmed with backup guidance modes specifically designed to operate in GPS-denied environments. The system switched to optical targeting using contrast recognition algorithms to maintain track on the bomber's distinctive airframe shape. Comment below if you think the outcome was already decided at this point. The Tu-22M3 reached the runway at 4:07 a.m. Pilot received final clearance from tower. Throttle advanced to takeoff power. Both NK-25 engines spooled to maximum thrust, generating combined output of 62,000 pounds. The bomber began its takeoff roll. Acceleration was rapid despite the aircraft's weight. The Tu-22M3 required only 1,900 meters of runway to achieve rotation speed of 270 kilometers per hour. At 17 seconds into the roll, with the aircraft having traveled 400 meters and accelerating through 180 kilometers per hour, the Ukrainian drone entered terminal phase. From above, the U-22 descended in a steep angle calculated to impact the fuselage section directly behind the cockpit. The drone carried a 40-kilogram high-explosive fragmentation warhead derived from artillery munitions. At 4:07 and 41 seconds, the drone struck the Tu-22M3 amidships at a combined closing velocity of 319 kilometers per hour. The warhead detonated on contact. The explosion occurred while the bomber was still accelerating, 11 seconds from rotation speed, 730 meters down the runway. Fragmentation penetrated the fuselage, rupturing fuel lines that fed the engines from internal wing tanks, carrying 34,000 kilograms of kerosene. Secondary detonation followed within milliseconds as aviation fuel ignited. The blast propagated through the bomber's internal structure. Both engines suffered catastrophic failure. The aircraft, worth $200 million per unit, according to 2024 Russian procurement data, broke apart before reaching takeoff velocity. The bomber's momentum carried the wreckage forward another 147 meters before debris came to rest, partially blocking the runway. Fire engulfed the entire airframe. The 3 KH-22 missiles, still mounted on weapons pylons and fully fueled, detonated sequentially over the following 90 seconds. Each missile carried a 900 combined explosions created a crater 41 meters in diameter and 6 meters deep, rendering the runway unusable. Emergency response vehicles reached the site at 4:11 a.m. All 4 crew members were killed. The fire burned for 3 hours before coming under control. From Ukrainian command, the assessment was immediate. The strike had removed one operational Tu-22M3 from Russia's long-range bomber fleet, a fleet numbering 57 aircraft according to International Institute for Strategic Studies 2024 estimates, but only 27 confirmed operationally ready according to Ukrainian military intelligence. The cost imbalance was decisive. A $65,000 expendable drone had destroyed a strategic bomber worth $200 million, plus 3 cruise missiles valued collectively at $5.4 million, plus runway infrastructure, requiring an estimated 6 weeks to repair. The immediate tactical impact extended beyond the single airframe loss. Takeoff Air Base was offline. The coordinated strike package planned for 5:47 a.m. was aborted. Without the Takeoff bomber, the mission profile collapsed. Remaining aircraft from Mozdok lacked the payload capacity to achieve mission objectives independently. Subscribe to see how one aircraft loss cascaded into operational paralysis across an entire strike complex. Minutes after impact, Russian Air Defense Command issued alerts across all long-range aviation facilities. The breach exposed fundamental vulnerabilities in base security architecture. Shaikovka's defenses had been configured to counter high-speed threats, cruise missiles, tactical aircraft, ballistic projectiles, not slow-moving kamikaze drones operating below radar detection thresholds. The Pantsir S-1 systems deployed at Shaikovka had maximum engagement range of 20 kilometers and minimum target velocity thresholds of 150 meters per second for optimal tracking. A drone flying at 40 meters per second fell outside primary engagement parameters. Electronic warfare systems were effective against GPS and guided munitions, but offered no defense against visual terminating guidance. What Russian commanders didn't realize was the extent to which Ukrainian intelligence had penetrated bomber rotation schedules. The strike on Shaikovka was not opportunistic. The operation had been planned for 18 days, coordinated with human intelligence sources that provided advance notice of the Tu-22M3's return from maintenance and scheduled mission departure time. Ukrainian reconnaissance had mapped Shaikovka's air defense positions with precision, identifying blind spots in radar coverage, patrol intervals, optimal approach vectors. The attack demonstrated not just technological capability, but comprehensive intelligence preparation. Russia's reliance on predictable operational patterns had created exploitable windows. By 5:30 a.m., damage assessment was complete. Beyond the destroyed Tu-22M3, Shaikovka had lost its primary runway, fuel infrastructure damaged by secondary explosions, and 6 maintenance vehicles destroyed in the fire. Runway repair timelines stretched to minimum 43 days, assuming availability of specialized construction materials and equipment. The Russian Long-Range Aviation Command issued immediate orders to relocate remaining Tu-22M3 assets from forward bases to facilities deeper inside Russian territory. Ingels 2 in Saratov Oblast, Ukrainka in Amur Oblast. The relocations added flight time to Ukrainian targets, reducing sortie efficiency and increasing fuel consumption. Aircraft that previously reached launch coordinates in 97 minutes now required 2 hours 34 minutes. The operational tempo of Russian strategic bombing campaigns declined measurably over the following 3 weeks. The response from Russian aerospace forces was to increase electronic warfare coverage at remaining bomber bases. By April 12, 14 additional Prasuka 4 systems had been deployed to create layered jamming environments extending 53 kilometers from critical facilities. Ground-based air defense batteries received updated target discrimination protocols prioritizing slow-moving small radar cross-section threats. Patrol frequencies increased. Security zones expanded from 12 kilometers to 22 kilometers radius around active runways. The measures were expensive and resource-intensive. Each Krasuka 4 system cost an estimated $37 million. Redeployment diverted assets from frontline electronic warfare operations against Ukrainian artillery and reconnaissance drones. What part of this operation surprised you most? Comment below and keep watching. From Ukrainian operational planning, the Takeoff strike validated a strategic approach that had been refined through 63 previous deep strike missions since January 2025. The methodology combined low-cost, expendable platforms with high-value intelligence to achieve asymmetric effects. Ukrainian forces had demonstrated consistent capability to penetrate Russian strategic depth despite numerical and technological disadvantages. Drones costing between $8,000 and $85,000 were destroying targets worth tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions, creating cost exchange ratios that Moscow could not sustain indefinitely. The loss of the Tu-22 M3 at Shakhovka contributed to broader degradation of Russian long-range aviation effectiveness. Between March and May 2025, Ukrainian strikes destroyed or damaged 11 strategic bombers, according to data compiled by Arms Control Association. The losses represented approximately 8% of Russia's operational strategic bomber fleet. More significantly, the attacks forced operational changes that reduced mission effectiveness. Bombers operating from distant bases consumed more fuel, carried reduced payloads, experienced higher maintenance requirements. Sortie rates declined from an average of 19 per week in February to 11 per week by mid-May. Ukrainian air defense networks gained additional warning time as Russian bombers required longer flight profiles to reach launch coordinates. Russian strategic planning adapted slowly. Long-Range Aviation Command maintained doctrinal emphasis on penetration bombing using standoff cruise missiles launched from beyond Ukrainian air defense engagement ranges. The doctrine assumed secure rear areas where bombers could stage without threat. Ukrainian deep strike capabilities had invalidated that assumption. Russian bases, even those hundreds of kilometers from the front, were no longer sanctuaries. The psychological impact on aircrew morale was measurable. Pilots understood their aircraft were vulnerable not just during combat missions, but on the ground during pre-flight operations. If you're following how Ukraine transformed Russian strategic depth into contested space, subscribe for more breakdowns on deep strike operations. By dawn, smoke from Shakhovka was visible from 42 kilometers. Emergency crews continued suppression operations. The runway remained closed. Russia's Ministry of Defense issued a statement at 6:47 acknowledging an incident involving a training aircraft with no mention of combat loss or Ukrainian action. International satellite imagery providers published overhead photography at 11:23 and showing the destroyed bomber wreckage and runway damage. The imagery confirmed Ukrainian claims. Western defense analysts noted the strike's timing, hitting the aircraft during its most vulnerable phase, fully loaded and accelerating for takeoff, maximizing destructive effect. What followed would reshape Russian bomber operations for months. Long-Range Aviation Command implemented dispersal protocols, distributing aircraft across more facilities to reduce concentration of high-value assets. The dispersal created logistical complications. Maintenance crews, weapon stocks, fuel supplies had to be distributed proportionally. Operational efficiency declined. Mission planning became more complex. Coordinated multi-aircraft strikes required longer assembly time as bombers departed from geographically separated bases. The cost calculation was brutal. Russia had invested approximately $200 million in the lost Tu-22 bomber, $5.4 million in destroyed cruise missiles, and faced $18 million in runway reconstruction costs, with a total immediate loss of $223.4 million. Additional costs included 6 weeks of reduced operational capacity at Shakhovka, relocation expenses for redistributed bomber assets, and deployment of supplementary air defense systems, valued collectively at $127 million. Ukraine's expenditure was $65,000 for the strike drone and $11,400 for the reconnaissance platform. Total mission cost of $76,400. The cost exchange ratio was 2,912 to 1. Sometimes, what appears to be a single aircraft loss becomes comprehensive degradation of strategic capability. The two 22M3 destroyed at Takeoff represented one airframe from a limited fleet. Its loss reduced Russian long-range aviation's operational capacity by 1.75%, a marginal impact in isolation. But the cumulative effect of 11 strategic bomber losses over 14 weeks represented 8.7% fleet degradation. More critically, the forced dispersal, operational tempo reduction, and defensive redeployment of resources created cascading inefficiencies that reduced overall strategic bombing effectiveness by an estimated 23%, according to Ukrainian military intelligence assessments published in May 2025. What should Russian Air Defense Command have done differently? Comment below and subscribe to see how small tactical victories compound into strategic shifts. By sunrise, analysis was clear. This was not simply about destroying one bomber. This was about demonstrating that Russia's strategic aviation assets, the long-range platforms Moscow relied on to strike deep into Ukrainian territory, were vulnerable at every phase of operation. Not just in flight, but on the ground. Not just at forward bases, but at facilities previously considered secure. Not just to sophisticated anti-aircraft systems, but to inexpensive drones guided by precise intelligence. The message was transparent. Russian long-range aviation no longer operated from sanctuary. Every airfield was contested space. Every sortie carried risk that extended beyond the mission itself. The Takeoff strike validated principles that would define the next phase of the conflict. Asymmetric warfare favors the side that can impose disproportionate costs on the opponent. Intelligence preparation transforms inexpensive platforms into precision weapons. Predictable operational patterns create exploitable vulnerabilities. Strategic depth means nothing if the enemy can reach targets at hand. Sometimes the most decisive battlefield is not where armies clash, but where the enemy believes they are safe. The 222 M3 bomber destroyed at 4:07, and on that April morning proved the point. There are no safe bases when your opponent has decided everywhere is the front line.